just so everybody knows, this is a preview. I'm going to be speaking a couple of times at Summit. Once on what they're calling AI Day, which is kind of an add-on. If you're going to Summit, I don't think it's included in the base price. It's like an extra thing. They're big in doing lots of add-ons at Summit, I've noticed. So whether you come or not, now you're going to be able to see this. I've been doing this presentation since January or February of this year, and it was kind of like I just stumbled into it. It was kind of just before Microsoft really started talking about Copilot and all that. And I tell you, it's something I've done probably at least once a month since the time I first started. It just kind of, I've either kept getting asked or I just approach clients directly and kind of go, hey, we're learning some things. You want us to just talk about them? And we do these as internal presentations. And I can tell you, this is evolving so quickly that every time I redo it, I have to revise it. I had to revise it. In fact, there's some stuff in here that I did 2 weeks ago as a little video. It's already out of date. So it is a really, really, really fast-moving topic and very exciting. Remind me at the end of this, the last time I presented this, it was actually at a CEO roundtable, and that's what this latest deck is, a summary of that. But I was actually co-keynoted. So the first keynote categorizes himself as a futurist. So he was thinking, 3 to 5 years out, how is this going to change society? And I'm kind of optimistic about what I think this will do. I would say he's optimistic about the power of this, pessimistic about the impact of the power of this on our society. And it was a very interesting and eye-opening conversation to me. I don't think I'm quite as far along the path as he is, but I'll share some of those insights with you too. This session is meant more to be, what is this? How do I use it? What are some practical things I can do right now? And what can I think about to help get me and my company a little bit more on board as I think in the near-term future of the next 3 to 18 months, what kinds of things can we be doing to get moving forward? And there's it says 20-minute executive overview because this is my first draft for Summit's AI Day, and they're only giving me 20 minutes to talk about it there. The least I've taken to talk through this before is 60 minutes. So I pulled a ton of slides out to try to consolidate it, but I'll go slower through this. I know I have more than 20 minutes. We'll have conversation, whatever we need to do. We can dive deeper into that. So you're kind of the guinea pigs for this. So I think it's helpful to start with this quick definition of, what is generative AI? And the image to the left on this slide is actually the number of tweets on the topic of generative AI per day over a 1-year period ending this past April. So you can kind of see the conversation, the amount of discussion around this has just gone from almost nothing a year ago to almost completely off the charts lately. Now, I haven't gotten past April at this point. And then there's a little definition there for you. But now let's get super, super practical with this. Every single thing you see on this slide was generated by AI. So I went to an image generator called Midjourney, and I gave it a prompt. So in AI, a prompt it's like a conversation. You're starting a conversation with the AI, and I gave it the prompt, a robot typing on a 1950s manual typewriter in an office. And it gave me the background for the slide. It actually gives you 4 images to choose from. I actually chose 2, but you can get a zoom in of any one, or you can keep drilling down into one. Then I went over to ChatGPT, and I gave it a prompt. Hey, give me a chart. I needed it square. So it was a conversation. It first gave me a nice rectangle. I was like, that doesn't look good on my slide. Make this a square for me. So give me a square chart analyzing the change in the number of tweets related to generative AI over time. And it gave me that chart. There's a little more to that story, and you'll see that a little later in the deck. But I was able to get to that with relatively little work. And then I went to another AI called Jasper. And I asked it, give me a 15-word definition for generative AI. And it gave me that definition. So just practically speaking, you can see we can generate all sorts of content, whether that's analytical content, textual content, image content, code content, and honestly, behind some of these is code content. And I'll talk a little bit about what is that, how does that come up, and how does it play a role in these things that look like they're not code. So it's pretty impressive what you can do with this technology right now. And ChatGPT, by the way, it is a product from a company called OpenAI. OpenAI is a company that has received tons of Microsoft funding. A lot of that funding is in the form of availability of Azure servers. So a lot of the OpenAI development work is done in Azure services, and Microsoft is making those available at a steep discount or free to the OpenAI people. And in return, Microsoft is getting some proprietary access to the OpenAI model. So when you hear Copilot, Copilot is using OpenAI to power AI built into Microsoft products. I'm going to focus more on ChatGPT for a lot of this, but we'll come back to Copilot again a little bit at the very end. So quick introduction to me. I know a number of you, so nice to see many of you again. Heidi, thanks for inviting me to be a part of the group today. My name is Geoff Ables. I've run a company now for 21 years, a little over 21 years, called C5 Insight. We're a Microsoft partner. We work with our clients to implement things like Dynamics 365, Microsoft 365, and the Power Platform. And we think of ourselves as people-centric, as a customer and employee experience. So we don't think about, I'll call it legacy technology, infrastructure technology, email technology, that classic stuff. That's not us, right? We're more the front end of how do you help people better engage inside the company. That's tools like Teams that we're on now, SharePoint, a lot of the Microsoft 365 suite, and outside of the company. That's Dynamics 365. And Power Platform, Power BI is kind of the connective tissue that brings all of that together. So that's kind of our mojo, and I like what I do. I've always liked work is actually one of the kind of fun things for me most days. Some days I'm ready to be done with it, but most days work is a fun thing for me. So I geek out on it. I've written some books. I've co-written some books. I've edited some books. Like Heidi, I'm a Microsoft MVP, which is just a nice way of Microsoft saying, hey, you volunteered a lot of time to really do things for the community, and you've probably done a good job of developing your own knowledge, and in return, Microsoft gives you this special designation and gives you access to some early information before they release it to the general public. And sometimes we even get to influence the development of some of Microsoft's products. So that's fun. The much more interesting side of me is over here. My wife and I are empty nesters. Show of hands. Any other empty nesters here? It's a great phase if you're not there yet. We love it. There's Verdi, our little empty nest companion. She's kind of a little pup in that picture now. She's a full-size dog now, but she's an interesting combination. She's got a little bit of Chihuahua in her, and a little bit of Basset Hound, and a little bit of Pit Bull. So somewhere there was a very ambitious member of the tribe that decided to make that happen. So she's an interesting mix of nervous and laid back. We love riding a motorcycle together. We love fine spirits, wine and bourbon. We don't tend to mix those two passions too much. And then we love hanging out with our little grandbabies. That's a kind of recent picture. Theo is 3 years old. Maple is not quite 1 year old yet. Okay, so I'm going to give you, if show of hands or put it in chat or whatever, how many of you have used ChatGPT in some form already, right? Just showing your physical hands is great. Okay, so we see a lot of people raising hands. I see some other ones typing and stuff like that. So the next question is, how many of you, good call, Nick. Yes, that is on Tail of the Dragon.
Yeah.
The next, do you ride, Nick?
No, I'm a car guy.
Okay, all right, same thing. Okay, yeah, then that's good. Yep. Those are the kind of people who know about Tail of the Dragon, some kind of driver or rider of some sort. So yeah, it's beautiful. Oh, yeah. The mountains of Western North Carolina are some of the best riding country in the world if you like, twisty mountain roads and scenic views and stuff like that. So it's absolutely lovely. So, and by the way, it's super convenient for me because I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is kind of like south central North Carolina. My daughter, her husband, and our 2 grandchildren live in Chattanooga, and so we go visit them a lot. So I get to ride that route every time we go visit them. If my wife's not with me, she doesn't want to be on the back of the bike for that type of ride.
Yeah. Awesome.
So quick training on ChatGPT, and I'll actually play you some to see it physically, because a lot of this I'm going to move through pretty quickly. I'm not going to show you exactly how to, but if you watch the video, you'll kind of figure out what the how-to is for each one of these things a little bit better. But what I say as I play this is, if you are not using some kind of AI, it doesn't have to be ChatGPT. There's a lot of other ones out there. There's a lot of ones that use like Jasper that actually uses ChatGPT. It's kind of like Microsoft. But if you're not starting to embrace AI, I would say at least weekly in your work life, I would tell you you're probably falling behind, and you really need to focus on how can you begin using this ASAP. And the good news is it's not that hard to use, right? When you go look at all the articles, I'm sure you can't like open up a browser without seeing some news about AI and ChatGPT. It makes it sound intimidating, right? Like, oh, here's all the secrets for successful prompting and blah, blah, blah. It's really not that hard to get involved in this. It's pretty simple, just a little bit of persistence. And it's like having a conversation with another human, maybe kind of a human that's also a search engine. I'm not sure quite how to put it yet, but it's not that challenging to get into it. I don't have any special education. I just started using it back in the fall because we're rebuilding our website, and because we're rethinking it, we decided we want to have a page for every single one of the Microsoft products that we provide services in, because that helps with search optimization and all of that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, Microsoft's rolling them out so fast we can't create new pages fast enough, but that's another story. So we're like, this is a big website now. We got to have a page for every one of these things. Have you ever done something like that, right? It's like, okay, it's time to write the SharePoint syntax page. Great. Okay, blank page. I got to come up with text. So around that time, via advertising, I stumbled into Jasper, and someone said you can write web pages in a fraction of the time. I was like, sure. We've all heard the marketing before. Let me try it out. So I was like, write me a 3-paragraph page on SharePoint syntax. And it was like, wrote it, and I was like, that's pretty good. And, took a little refining, but I was getting hooked already. I didn't know about ChatGPT, although it had been out for about a month by the time I got into that. Then I stumbled into ChatGPT, and then I just started talking about what I was doing with it. I didn't have any training or anything, and I keep using it. The more you use it, the better you get at it. But it's not hard to get started, but it's running fast, and we should all jump on board to try to keep up with it, I think. So ChatGPT is what I'm focusing on. There's a lot of other competing ones out there. I'm not here to kind of tell you this is the one you should use. It's the one I'm using more, so it's the one I'll focus on. It happens to be the one that's in the news a lot right now. So if you want to use it, real simple, there's the website to go to. In fact, you can go to openai.com. That will bring you the overall website. But remember, ChatGPT is a product of OpenAI. So if you go to chat.openai, that'll take you to the screen to log into ChatGPT. There's another product called DALL-E, DALL-E, and that actually generates images. You'll see a little bit of that in here. I don't do as much with the images, so I don't talk about that too much, but we'll talk a bit about it. So you just sign up for an account. You can use your Microsoft ID to log in. If you have a Microsoft 365 account for your employer, or if your employer's kind of your employer might be like, hey, nobody's allowed to use this, then use your own Microsoft Live ID, whatever, or you can use a Google ID. I think it allows a lot of IDs. You can use it for free, and a lot of what you'll see is freely available to you today. So you don't have to sign up for the paid account. My opinion is the paid account for $20 a month is well worth it. Cancel after a month if you're not using it much, but it gives you access to a lot of other things. To me, the most important one is it used to be called Code Interpreter. It is now called Advanced Data Analytics. I think they must have learned how to name things from Microsoft, because these are both horrible names to describe what it does. But essentially what it does is it allows you to upload things as part of your interaction with ChatGPT. So instead of just having a prompt where I have to type something, I can actually say, here's a document, here's a spreadsheet, here's a database, here's something. Do something with this thing that I've uploaded so I can learn some more stuff, so I can get some more value out of all the intelligence that you pack in. There's a lot of other capabilities, but to me, that's the one I've started using probably at least weekly, maybe more. And then once you get in, you enter a prompt, or you can call it asking a question. So enter a prompt. Just think of it as, I am talking to an expert who can do lots of things, and we'll talk about what some of those lots of things are in a minute. I have this expert at my disposal, and I can ask them to do anything I want them to do, and they will do it. What would you do if you had an expert data scientist at your disposal? What would you do if you had an expert creative at your disposal? What would you ask them to do for you? And you just start that conversation. Or alternately, you can start, if you've got the $20 monthly one, you can upload a file, and then you can enter your prompt and ask a question about that. So that's the quick verbal walkthrough of this. But let me show you in 2 minutes what it's like to use this. I'm not going to get through the setting up an account. That's a one-time thing. But once the account's set up, let's see what it's like to do something with ChatGPT. And I forgot to share my mic. Can you guys hear me? Okay, no. Let's try that again. I thought, stop sharing computer sound. Include computer sound. Did you hear that?
No.
All right, let me stop sharing for a moment completely and restart sharing. And I will choose It's being uncooperative. One
Sounds like a
moment.
question to enter into ChatGPT. How do I get my
do
audio
need
to work on a presentation?
I think I've probably got my speaker sound set up, my headset sound set up funky here. So let's do this. Now let's try once more. There we go. All right. Now I will share the screen. All right. And full screen. If you hear sound, just give me a thumbs up. We're logged into ChatGPT. Let's start simple by asking ChatGPT to be creative. We're going to ask it to create a funny rhyme about ChatGPT that should be 4 lines long. And there it is. All right, now let's do something a little bit more businessy. We're going to start by creating a new chat. Notice that ChatGPT has created a separate place in the left-hand column for my last chat, so I can come back to it anytime. For this chat, I'm going to switch to GPT-4 and use the code interpreter. These are only available if you're paying to subscribe to ChatGPT. Notice that when I selected Code Interpreter, a plus sign appeared here. Code Interpreter allows me to upload files that I can discuss and analyze with ChatGPT. So let's load a sample data set of company financial reports. Let's ask it a basic question we could ask about any data set. We're going to ask it to describe this data set. Seems like ChatGPT understands this is financial data. So now let's ask it a harder question. We're going to ask it to analyze the data set and show me an actionable visualization of the data. It gives us a bunch of options. Let's just enter a number and see what it does. You can see ChatGPT came up with a chart and described a few interesting and potentially actionable insights. We could do some more analysis, but let's back up a little bit and see how ChatGPT came up with this chart. Notice here it says show work. Wherever it says to show work, we can expand that and you can see ChatGPT wrote and executed code in order to do this. Okay, one last command. I've asked ChatGPT to create a copy of the chart in a format I can download to include in a presentation. Let's click the link and have a look at the file. Okay, so a couple things there. First of all, you're going to get this whole video via Heidi later. These slides, if you want the slides, you can ping me directly. I'll put my contact information back up here. And you can get this from me. And if I give you the slides, they'll be PDF, but the links will be hot. So if you're like, I just want to watch that one little video, that's fine. Just ping me. I'll get you the slides, and you can go through this and look at it. Now, as I went through that, you kind of saw a little bit of that. I kind of prompt. I type something into it. I can upload a document. I've got to have the $20 monthly fee. That video mentioned Code Interpreter. That's one thing that's gone out of date. That's a 2-week-old video that's now been renamed to Advanced Data Analytics. Same thing, though. That just now shows up as the option, and I can have it work with that. Two things to call out about that whole sequence. First of all, ChatGPT is creative. So if you go to that video and you say, I'm going to go do exactly the same thing Geoff did to produce the same results, it won't happen. It would be like asking Heidi for the same thing one day and again the next day, and she might have a new perspective on it. She might not really connect it to what was asked yesterday. You might get a different answer. It's interesting doing these videos because I can't fully rehearse them because I don't know what's going to come out when I do them, right? It's gonna kind of be creative and do something with it. So know that it's very creative. The game changer in there also is that what used to be called Code Interpreter is now Advanced Data Analytics. It was called Code Interpreter because up until then, like ancient history now in AI terms, up until about 3 months ago, you would just interact with ChatGPT. You would say, tell me something, and it would give you text back, right? Text question in, text question back. Sometimes it could do some light charting and graphing, but not much really, some tables and things like that. With Advanced Data Analytics, when you ask it questions, it can look at that and go, if I need to write and execute code to answer that question, that's what I'm going to do. So in a way, chat is now interacting with the real world. Now, prior to 3 months ago, you could say, write code for me to do something. ChatGPT can give you that code, but you had to take that code and do something with it on your own. Now ChatGPT can say, oh, you want a chart? I've got to write some code to create a chart. I'll go ahead and write that code. It's using the language Python to write that code, which is now, by the way, built into Excel. So I would imagine you'll be able to soon be able to do things like, say, write Python that I can execute in Excel to do analytics on my Excel spreadsheet. I'll bet that's part of the reason why Microsoft just recently added Python to Excel. So that's kind of a big game changer. If you're not a coder, you might not understand it. And the beauty of it is you don't have to understand it if you're not a coder. It just says, I'm your coder. I will answer your question by writing and executing code. And if you want to look at my work, I'll show it to you. If you don't want to look at my work, no problem. I'm cool without doing that. There's limitations on it for sure, but it's certainly taken some leaps ahead.
Hey, Geoff, sorry to interrupt you.
Ma'am.
You have a question. Do you want me to interrupt with those questions or keep going through your thing?
Sure, great. Yeah, I'm horrible at noticing those come in as they come in. So yeah, let's stop and ask. Yeah.
Tatiana was asking, to use the data set description, do you need to have data set in public domain, or can they do it for in-house data sets?
Very good question. So the data set that I uploaded, that can be wherever you want. Now, in ChatGPT, I have to upload it to ChatGPT. That is using, if I'm on the $20 version, I have to be on that at a minimum. That means it is using that data to help train ChatGPT. There is a security implication there because theoretically, that data could come out in an answer somewhere else, right? For example, let's say I upload, I don't know, everybody in Philadelphia's white pages listing. If you're old, you might not even know what the white pages are, the telephone directory. So I upload names and phone numbers. And now I say, hey, give me the phone number for Heidi Neuhauser. And it might have an answer to that question, right? It might have that because of that data set. Maybe that's not all that harmful, but you can imagine if you upload client accounts with total transaction volumes, maybe that starts to be a big security risk. So the data can exist wherever you want it to exist. I'm using some public data sets, but I actually will show you. We've used some of our own proprietary stuff internally here, taking a few risks, obfuscating things a little bit, but there are also things you can do to access ChatGPT, to access, let's just call it Open AI, without the security risk. And I'll cover some of those a little bit as we get deeper in the presentation. Excellent question, and thank you for asking it. So as I go through this today, I'm going to go pretty quick, but we'll pause, hopefully have a little bit of fun. I'm going to challenge you to think and interact a little bit as we do this too. I'm not saying these are the 5 roles for generative AI. I just tried to pick out 5 that I've kind of found are pretty eye-opening ones, pretty value-added things you can do. But again, it's your knowledgeable expert, right? Whatever it is, it's your sales consultant. There's things you can ask them about things that we do, right? That typically people would come to their C5 Insight consultant and ask. Now you can kind of have this other expert, right? So we're all going to have to grow. We're all going to figure out, how's the world going to change, and I'll still keep adding value to what's going on here. So let's dig into these 5 together, and then I'm going to share some closing thoughts with you. Before I do that, let me challenge you to this. When I did this earlier this week, it was a live workshop, so these were stickies people put on the wall. This is a digital workshop, so let's be digital with it. As I go through these, post your ideas here. Maybe some of you have already done stuff. I'm sure some of you have already done some things with this. Post your own things here. This is something I've done. This is something I've tried. Or if you have ideas, post those ideas here. Share them. Let's be a community. Let everybody learn from what you're thinking and doing. We can discuss those towards the end if we want to. But just kind of keep a dialogue going of all these different things that you might be doing out there. And by the way, this presentation, I used to have a lot of kind of personal and business stuff in here, but because I had to make it shorter, I've made this very businessy now. There are tons of personal things you can do with this as well, right? So think about those things as well. We're a community. Think about how you can help you to become a better human being outside of work as well as inside of work. All right, so let's dive in. First of all, your creativity and communications consultant is one thing. By the way, on some of these slides, you're going to see this little pop-up down here near the bottom, which basically says, here's how I created the background for this slide. I'm not going to talk about those every time it comes up. I just wanted to kind of convey the power of this as I go through it so you could kind of see here's some practical ways I can use this to do some interesting things. But we'll talk about that particular one here a little bit. So every year, C5 Insight sends out a St. Patrick's Day gift to kind of our clients and some of our top prospects and friends and family and all that kind of stuff. So it's just our way of saying, let's celebrate together. We have this whole kind of Irish vibe thing going at C5 Insight because our mission is called Powered by Luck, and that means we want to help people and organizations to listen to each other better, understand and analyze the data you get from listening better, create better connections through process, and know what the results are so we can continuously improve. So that means listen, understand, connect, and know. That's an acronym. It spells luck. Our mission is to help the world become more powered by luck. So for some reason, we came up with that years ago. It spelled luck. For some reason, when we very first did our first giveaway, we were trying to do something for the new year. And by the time we finally got our act together, we were like, well, what holiday's close to now? And it was St. Patrick's Day. So it all kind of stuck together and seemed to work across a common theme. So, I probably should tell you we had some beautiful strategy for all that. It's just kind of it all fell in place. So last year, or this year, 2023, our gift was it's actually one of the most popular ones we've done. I don't know if I can pull it all the way over here. I've got one on my desktop. It's a coffee warmer. So it's that thing you plug in on your desktop. You can set your coffee mug on it. It's like a little hot plate, and it keeps your mug of coffee warm as long as you have it on there. All sorts of vetting to find just the right one, because some of these are cheap and don't really warm it up. And we wanted one, if you take a cold cup, you could put it there and it would even heat that up. So we put this together this year. Now, what we usually do when we do this is we get together as a team. Sometimes it's physically and we'll have a green beer. Sometimes it's a team meeting, especially now that we've been virtual for about 4 or 5 years now. But we get together and we're like, let's come up with a fun limerick or blessing or poem that feels kind of Irish-like, to accompany this when we send it. And we'll usually kill, I'd say, at least 2 to 4 hours coming up with something, probably more, because it's multiple people working together. When you're in our business, everybody measures their time, right? That's kind of how we have to bill for our services. So when you get 5 people spending 2 hours together, we've consumed 10 hours trying to come up with something, right? So this year we said, hey, we're getting into this thing called AI. Let's get AI to build this for us. So the first thing we did was we went to DALL-E and we said, it would be kind of cool to have a picture to go with it this year. We've never done a picture before. We're not very artsy people. So we came up with this prompt that you saw on the opening slide to this section and came up with a nice picture. Then we had a conversation with ChatGPT, and it was in a meeting kind of like this, where we kind of said, okay, let's all kind of ask questions. So first one was write an Irish blessing about luck, the acronym luck, listen, understand, connect, and know. And it put something out there that we were like, that's pretty cool. But then someone said, hey, wait a minute. Whenever we do this, we want to connect the thing we do to the blessing, right? To the poem that we put out, the limerick we put out there. So let's add something about coffee to it as well. Great. Spit something else out. Awesome. And then we're kind of like, you know what? We're in the business of helping our clients to move along this journey of using technology to become more and more powered by luck. We should let them know that we're using the technology as a part of this too. So let the reader know that this was written by AI. We took the final output. We always have a letter with a limerick embedded in the middle of the letter. Here's what the letter looked like. I'm not going to read you the whole letter, but let me read you the limerick. And AI wrote this with words so true. May luck be with you, always in sight. Listen, understand, connect, and know what's right. Warm coffee by your side to start your day. With luck as your guide, you'll find your way. Now, I don't think, an Irish poet is going to be jealous of the quality of this per se, but I can tell you the quality of this is at least as good as what us humans at C5 Insight had generated over many, many years, 20 years of doing these kinds of things together. And we had a lot of fun doing it, and we did this in like 15 minutes, maybe. So saved a lot of time and raised the level of quality with what we're doing. And you can generate all sorts of content with this. So let's have a little bit of fun since I have more time today. This year in 2024, so this coming year, we've already picked out our gift. It's going to be a high camp flask. If you know what high camp flasks are, if you like to camp or tailgate or anything like that, it's a flask. And on each side of the flask are these magnetically attached cups, right? So they can be like your highball cups or whatever. In the flask, it's enough for an entire bottle of wine or an entire bottle of bourbon or ice water or coffee or whatever you want to put in there, soup. So we've got these super nice flasks, kind of this reinforced aluminum thing. It's a really nice high-end gift this year. So I want you to help me interact with ChatGPT to create a poem, a limerick, a blessing, whatever, to go with this gift. So I'm going to ask you to put something in chat. I may not get to all of you guys, but I'll try to, take a few examples. And I want to go over to the web here. And I'm going to go to ChatGPT. By the way, when I did this on Monday, for the first time ever, ChatGPT 4 just wouldn't answer my questions. So I'm hoping it's going to be kinder to me this time than it was on Monday. So just put something in chat. Like what do you want to create for a poem, limerick, blessing, whatever it is for ChatGPT to help us create. I'm just going to watch the chat here and see the first one that comes up. Let's see what somebody comes up with. So I did a video. I love you, ChatGPT. data sets. Okay, so no ideas yet, I don't think. So need
Sorry,
to see
we're
an
still
idea.
doing your first workshop. We're on it. We're on it,
All
Geoff.
right.
We're changing gears.
Sorry to throw that at you. Okay, so I'm going to take this second one. Whoops, and I did not mean to do that. Because ChatGPT has a lot of programming to make sure we keep things clean and tasteful. So I'm going to put this, and again, my GPT is not being kind to me. In fact, this whole screen seems to have done something odd. Let's see. There's a whole new browser window. Let's try this. Because remember, you have to put it in terms of a word, or so you have to ask it, here's what I want. So here we go. Heidi gave one that's something. So let's copy Heidi's, and hopefully, there we go. Oops, we don't want that in there. Okay. So let's just put that in there and see what it comes up with. So notice it didn't have the context to know what luck meant. Now, what we don't know is, did it search the internet and find this humor, or is it literally making this joke up as we go along, right? So there's one thing. Let's see what else we've got.
That's a pretty bad joke, for what it's worth.
So
Don't go with
I have
that.
found that
Don't
its
put
sense
that
of
in your
humor is not that great. So I'm going to take Annie. Annie, I'm going to take yours, and I'm going to say, write a Irish toast about when your team needs luck, you need luck getting out of the woods. Okay, so I get it. It's like, okay, this is something you might take camping in the woods or something like that. So let's see what it comes up with. Here's the path we wander, in forests thick or fields of play. May luck guide our steps yonder and lead us not too far astray. And it might be very verbose here. I like that. Or if we're lost or down by scores, we'll raise a glass and hope implore. May fortune find us evermore and lead us home to help us score. I mean, this is pretty nice, right? So, and for us, this is kind of, we can spell out luck like we did in there, and understand, connect, and know, or we can just kind of refer to it. Most of our clients who've known us for a while kind of know that that's kind of our mission and that's what we're all about. So great thoughts, great inputs here. We can't spend a lot of time on this, but we could go back and forth and kind of do more and more with it. The more specific you are with ChatGPT, the more specific the answer is going to be, right? When I did this on Monday, it wouldn't even give me an answer because it wasn't listening to me, but someone said something like, fun things to do in Ireland. And I was kind of like, yeah, that's not really a question that's going to generate much of a toast, right? It probably needs to be a little more specific than that. So just know, the more specific you are, the more this is going to work. And I would say, Annie, you're probably the winner of the best that we've seen so far. So Annie, if you would contact me after this, I'm going to drop one of those tumblers in the mail to you, so you'll get that. So go look at go look at those online. These are really, really nice. You'll enjoy it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it's part of having a little bit of fun with this thing. All right. So tons of other things that you can do with this. Write blogs with it, right? We wrote our web pages with it. You can write blogs with it. This is actually a blog kind of written by my colleague, Malcolm McCauley, who's amazing and writes good stuff all the time and does lots of sessions. You might have heard of him. So he sent me something as an internal document not too long ago. Say 4 months ago. And it was basically like, hey, we're doing a lot of migrations from on-prem to the cloud lately. And some people are doing a full rebuild, right? It's like do everything over again and then move the data in. And others are kind of saying forklift it, move it over, data customizations, everything. And so he just sent this internal document out with some bullet points kind of saying, here's some things I've learned because we've done this different ways and some pros and cons and when it may or may not be appropriate to do that. And I looked at it, I was like, this is an awesome document. It's so helpful for us internally. It would be great to have it be a blog, but it wasn't public ready, right? I mean, you could probably make sense of it, but it was just bullet points and didn't read in a nice smooth flow. So I took it and I was like, hey, Malcolm, let's check this out. Like, hey, ChatGPT, write a blog using this outline. Boom, wrote a blog. It was pretty darn good without any modification. Now we looked at it and we're like, you know what? There's one key point there we want to make. It's not even in there. Let's add a paragraph on that. And we could tell it, add a paragraph on this if we want to, or we can just copy paste and edit it, do our own paragraphs. We did a little bit of that. So it's not as easy as do this, done, copy, paste. I'll come back to that at the end. Takes a little bit of work, but if you work with it, it's a lot less effort than blank sheet of paper, start writing a blog on your own. Internal communications. One of our clients told us that they used to run a large internal communications team. That internal comms is usually a role in a pretty large organization. Like you start hitting 500 to 1,000 employees, and maybe you've got somebody with the title internal communications. If you get really large, you might have larger teams. This person, I work with a lot of internal communicators because we do a lot with SharePoint and Teams, and that's kind of some of the tools of the trade. And they said, I came from a large organization of about 20,000 people. We had an 8-person internal comms team. Now I'm running internal comms for a 1,000-person organization, and I like working for a smaller organization, but we haven't been able to keep up with the amount of things we should be communicating to the team because we've only got 3 people on the team. But now because of ChatGPT, we're communicating as if we're an 8-person team, right? So we're able to do more at the same level of quality than we ever could have done before. Another area where this shines is policies and agreements. ChatGPT is anything that kind of follows rules and proven standards is where it's going to be really, really effective, right? Because it knows the consistent patterns that are used. We used it recently to develop a policy on password management because we're a partner, so we not only log into our systems, we have to log into our client systems. So we needed kind of a pretty specific policy around this. We had ChatGPT write the first draft of it for us, and we tweaked it from there. You need something in your HR handbook policy. It's going to be great at that. You may need a draft of a legal agreement. It's going to help you with that as well. So some really, really cool things you can do with all sorts of different creativity, even when it's things that don't seem very creative, right? Legal code, it's awesome at. I wouldn't say replace a lawyer. I wouldn't say replace your HR person with this yet, but I would say it's going to save them or you a ton of time. And what I find so far for us and many others is this is doing things that people would not otherwise even do in their organizations, right? Some of these things like, would I create a limerick? We don't have time to do that. Oh, now I can create one easily, right? So now I'm going to start doing some things that I might not have done otherwise because from a time and money standpoint, maybe it just didn't make sense. Now it does. All right, let's talk about an administrative assistant now. So I wasn't sure of the right word even for this one. It was just kind of this cluster of a lot of really interesting things. And I was kind of like, all right, well, if I had like this awesome administrative assistant, maybe I'd get that person to help me do these things better. So here's one that blew me away. So in our business, I kind of do a lot of the early stage work with prospective clients. So this was actually a conversation with this is being recorded, so maybe I shouldn't mention who it's with. This is a conversation with a large government entity that wanted to do some stuff with SharePoint and Teams with us. So when I start working with someone, I'm pretty good at taking notes. I'll do a Teams meeting. I take notes during the meeting, which, by the way, AI is even starting to do that for us. That's another conversation later, but I'll take notes. I'm good at OneNote, and I've always been a pretty good note taker. But when you take notes, people talk about A, then B, then C. Oh, wait a minute. I got to talk about this other thing on B, now D. Oh, A.1.2 we should also talk about. And so you have this, this transcript of notes, but they're not well organized. And the next thing I often have to do, and I did have to do in this case, was, hey, they want us to come back. They want us to present a proposal to them in a demo. And so I always like to lead into that, showing, hey, I'm practicing being powered by luck. I want you to know I listen to you. So here's your situation. And I want you to know I understand what your goals are. So I always summarize all those notes into here's what we think we know about you, and here's what we think you want to do. And hopefully they go, yeah, you're right. You did a good job listening. Or hopefully they even go, if I'm wrong, they tell me, and I get to know them a little bit better. Well, that process going through my notes, that takes a long time, like 2, 3, 4 hours sometimes to summarize everything, get it into a nice succinct format. So I started doing that, and I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? So this is where I copied some stuff out. I obfuscated a few things, so I wasn't putting stuff in there that's personally identifiable or anything like that. And I said, ChatGPT, summarize these notes for me. It cranked out some notes. I was like, that is awesome. It brought multiple concepts together from across the notes into, the right set of bullets all grouped together. And I was like, cool, now I'm going to start grouping this into the current situation, the goals. And I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? ChatGPT can do that too. So I said, group this into the current situation and goals. It did all that. I had to go clean up about 4 bullets. One of them it was dead wrong on. So don't think it had all the answers. But I had to go clean up the 4 bullets. And again, 2+ hours of work, down to 15 minutes for me to take this stuff and put it out there in a logical format to share with this prospective client. Really powerful. Now, that last one in an earlier comment kind of brings up the point of, wait a minute, what if I've got some data that I really don't want to put out there that somebody might see? There's that risk, and nobody knows how big or small that risk is, but it's there. So ChatGPT has as an enterprise account. I've not set that up or played with it, but I understand if you buy an enterprise account that you actually get security with that. So that can protect you. But you also have ChatGPT has its own AI. So if you're a Microsoft shop, you might be aware of the Azure Open AI API. That's a long-winded way of saying via Microsoft, you can call ChatGPT's API, the programming interface, send it a message and get a response back. And you can do that in a completely secure, protected way. So one thing we've done internally, and we're trying to kind of work on a version of this that we can make available to others at no cost or very low cost, probably no cost. We might add some bells and whistles for a cost for some of our clients, but we're calling it right now Secure GPT. It's actually pretty easy to set up. If you do some searches, it's easy to incorporate this into Power Automate, call OpenAI, pass something, get it back, or into a Power App. So using this, I can now interact with it, submit my notes, get its answer back to my notes, and I know that my data is secure when I do this. So there's doorways you can go through to keep your data secure. And along those lines, here's something that was actually literally being done by an administrative person, and now we've completely automated it for a client. And this is using Power Automate, but it's using the OpenAI API to do it. So in this case, to summarize,
fast. You have 5 minutes left, by the way.
Okay, I gotta speed up. So essentially what we did was we passed it notes from sales opportunities. They wanted those notes categorized into what products this customer was interested in. And so it did that, and it did it way more efficiently and at the same level of accuracy as another human being, saving thousands of hours a year. All right, Research Assistant. So this is where ChatGPT can actually help you do some research. By the way, if there's any book you want to know about that was written before September of 2021, that's ChatGPT's training database, you can ask it for a summary, including one of my books, which I kind of thought it must just be bestsellers and public domain stuff. No, it probably knows almost every book written up to then. So you can use it for that. You can also tell it to assume a role for you. So we're hiring a sales manager, and I said, okay, you're a sales manager recruiting for this position. What questions would you ask? And notice I had a lot of nuance in my requests there, right? It wasn't like a search term. It was like I really put a lot of nuances in here saying, here's all the things we want to consider when we do this. This is the kind of person we want. It created the list. By the way, we have a consultant working with us, helping us to build that team out. And when I showed this to him, and he said, these are great questions. I don't really have much to add to this, right? So my sales consultant now is ChatGPT. Document analysis. So remember advanced data analytics? I can also upload a document to it. I just took our standard master service agreement and asked it a question just to see how it would answer. Amazingly enough, it went through it and kind of gave me a really answer. Lots of nuance to that answer, then a nice summary answer at the bottom. So you can have it look at your documents and tell you things like, hey, someone wants me to sign this contract. What should I be concerned about? Hey, what do you think about? Ask me questions. It's the expert on that document you've just uploaded to it. One of the coolest and most exciting capabilities to me is this idea of being your data scientist. A big part of data science is data preparation. I recently spoke at an event. Afterwards, the group said, the organization ran and said, here's a list of everybody that came to it. Feel free to do whatever you want to do with it if you want to follow up with people that came. Great, but it was in a horrible format, and I wanted it inside of CRM. So I gave it to ChatGPT and said, clean this up. Break out this one field that has first name, last name, company name in it into separate columns for each of those things. Oh, and by the way, look at the URL, part of the email address, and plug in the URL of the company's website. However, if it's a public free URL, I don't want to say their website is www.gmail.com, so just leave it blank in that case. No problem. Went through everything, gave me the list, and I said, can you export that for me so I can import it into CRM? Sure, here's a CSV. Did I have to do a little more editing and cleanup? Absolutely. But it wasn't nearly as much as I thought it would be. Customer feedback. So this was publicly sourced information, not something I put in, that's from our clients or us, but I basically went and got thousands of records of customer feedback information, narrative comments that customers made. And I said, hey, what are the recurring themes in these narratives? Gave me the recurring themes. Okay, take that top theme, customer service and communication, and break that down further. Tell me the kinds of issues that we're running into in that most important bar. Great. Hey, by the way, within that, can you also tell me the sentiment of this overall so I can see the negative and positive sentiment overall? Great. Oh, by the way, can you just kind of give me some feedback on what things you think we need to improve as an organization based on this analysis? Yeah, here's my ideas on how to do all of that stuff. Pretty amazing stuff, right? Is it right all the time? Maybe not, but you're the human. You're the one who adds that context to it. Regression, you can do regression analysis. The interesting thing here is regression, predictive modeling, is a form of AI. You are using AI to create AI. So I took another publicly sourced set of data, leads. I said, hey, take that converted column. That's a 0 if it's not converted. It's a 1 if it is. And build a regression model to tell me how likely people who are still scored a 0 will be to convert. Great. Now give me the top 10 records. So if I have 1,000 records to follow up with and I've only got time for 10, I'm going to follow up with the 10 that are most likely to convert. No problem. Here's a list of records and here's a probability score. You know, when I talk to those folks, I'd like to know why they scored high, because that can give me some helpful context to be able to have better conversations with them. Sure, here's the top things that led to the model score that I came up with. And by the way, here's one that's connected directly to it where I can see a great way to get creative with engaging with them. App development, this is what I'm going to go super fast on. I shortened it a lot, but it can be your app developer too. I think one of the coolest, most powerful things here is it can comment your code for you. It can explain code to you. We find this incredibly helpful. It can write code for you as well, and I'm not going to get into that today. But when you look at this as a capability, a lot of people go, hey, as a developer, I hate commenting my code. Now I can comment my code for me. Thumbs up, that's really cool. But I can tell you, coder comments to their code often are horrible or non-existent. And if it's really this good at it, that doesn't matter anymore. We may not care if our coders comment their code because ChatGPT can comment our code for us. Our business analysts now who aren't coders, instead of saying, hey, coder, can you look at this code and tell me what it does so I can put this into the roadmap plan for what we do with this code next? I don't need the coder anymore. I can have it analyze the code for me. I can make decisions about what needs to be done. I get the coder engaged when and if we actually need revisions made to that code. Yes, GitHub Copilot, awesome tool for generating code. So that's another good one to look at. I used to have a slide in here, but we don't have time for it today. Some super quick closing thoughts here for you today. Some tips, some strategies, and a vision for the future. Tips for today is, first of all, I believe this is true. So, there is some fear associated with AI. I think, I can't tell you if all those fears are going to be true or not. What I can tell you is the folks who lag behind are going to be the ones at most risk. So think about getting ahead of it. Be those people, be those companies who are embracing this, because those are the ones that are going to have an advantage. Remember, it's an assistant. It's not a consultant. It's a conversation. It's not a prompt, right? So a lot of people are like, well, I tried this. It didn't give me the answer I want. I'm moving on. If I go to somebody in my office and I go, hey, can you give me a limerick for St. Patrick's Day? And they don't give me the right answer. Do I go, forget it, I'm just going to do it myself? Or do I go, okay, they misunderstood me. Let me keep having a conversation here until they're able to produce what I want. And remember, it can produce stuff that's completely wrong. So there's no guarantee that what it produces will be correct. It will always look like it's a very confident answer, so it could probably run for elected office, but you need to be the judge that looks at it and says, help me break this down and make sure that this is actually correct. Some strategies for you. The best data is your data. What that means is most of what you've seen so far is interacting with ChatGPT because it's an expert trained on internet data based on web data. Your data is really going to open this up. And the nice thing is, this is now going to start to be embedded in all of your applications. If you're a Microsoft shop, you're going to have these. If you're using multiple different AI, multiple different platforms like SAP for one thing and Microsoft for another and Salesforce for another, they'll probably all have AIs associated with them, but the power of AI is the ability to bring all of that together. The other thing to remember is you want your leaders and managers to embrace this, not just to fund it, but to actually embrace it. According to Harvard Business Review, when they do, this is what drives results. So my suggestion to you for your quarterly strategy is find someone who can be your organizational digital coach. As Harvard Business Review says, the important thing is get them to help you put a digital vision together. What's our roadmap for starting to move towards this stuff? And that vision should always include cleaning and consolidating your technology platforms. If AI has to go to 3 different platforms to give you good recommendations, it's probably not going to work well, right? Those AIs are going to be built into each one of those platforms, and all they're going to know is the knowledge that they have access to. The more you do with less, the more you're going to get out of that investment. Of course, we're a Microsoft shop, but if you're on the verge of something else, just make a decision, because any decision is better than a fragmented decision. And the last thing is, what could possibly go wrong, right? There's a lot of discussion around this with ChatGPT and AI, and robotics is developing unbelievably quickly right now too. So there's a lot of things people talk about that, maybe this isn't such a good outcome for it. Those are a lot of things to be concerned about. Here's what I am most concerned about. That is this. As a breakthrough Harvard Medical School study that was concluded not too long ago and was done over 80 years, from people starting at a very young age all the way up in the highest ages as they began to pass away. And what that study found was the most important thing for a happier and healthier life is good relationships. More than anything else, more than your diet, more than how much you sleep, even more than what you smoke. It's worse to be lonely than it is to smoke 15 cigarettes a day. That's how serious this is. The Surgeon General of the United States recently released information saying loneliness is at an epidemic proportion in this country. For the first time ever, loneliness among young people is on the rise. And I don't think it's much mystery why. We also found that for the first time ever, suicide among young women is at an all-time high. That used to be something that was more found among young men. Now it's on the rise among young women. I say all this not because I think AI is at risk of this. I say all this because I think AI is going to help us solve problems that we think are unsolvable. AI, I think, has the ability to make us superhumans. And I don't mean make us great data analysts and all those other great productivity things that are helpful. I mean unleash us to be what humans are meant to be, to live in community and relationship with each other. So I challenge you to think about how you use this great new technology, not to create more isolation, not to create more division, but to create more inclusion, to create more community, create more time for us to do the thing that's most important to us as humans, and that is relate to our fellow human beings. I think the possibility is there for it. Heidi, I'm sorry, I probably dug into yours by a few minutes there, but hopefully those are some good outcomes overall. There's my quick contact info. If you want the stuff, feel free to reach out to get it, and I'll get you the slides. Thanks all. I saw a lot of comments coming in here. Thanks for sharing those as well.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you, Geoff. Thanks for pivoting your topic and completely changing what you were going to talk about.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
It was fun.
Cool. Okay, so to talk about something completely different now, who's excited about Power Automate? I love Power Automate. So specifically what this session is designed to do is talk about how you could take Dynamics CE. So Alan, I know you're on ERP, but it's okay. ERP is eventually moving to Dataverse, so you'll have to know this someday. It's on the roadmap, probably years out, but it's on the roadmap. But we're going to take Dynamics 365 first-party apps and talk about how to extend that using Power Automate. So you all know me, we'll skip this. All right, you'll see a lot of my animals in the slides because instead of Geoff's very clever AI generated imagery, I thought my animals would be cute. So this is Sushi. Sushi is showing us our agenda here. We're not going to get through all of this, but I'm hoping we can get through. We'll blast through Power Automate 101 because it sounds like you all know it. We'll talk about what the built-in connectors are. I just refreshed this because there's been some change. You know, the speed of innovation in Microsoft and in Power Automate specifically is so fast. So new built-in connectors, changes in the triggers and actions in those. We'll go through those quickly. What I want to spend most of our time on today is the Dataverse connectors deep dive. And then the rest of the content here are specific connectors that I think can be valuable to help extend sales, marketing, and service. And when I'm saying marketing, I didn't get that far in this because right now it's like out of the box marketing stuff, not so much the marketing app itself. So Power Automate 101, if you're coming from a traditional Microsoft CRM background, they're just classic workflows, but way more powerful. So instead of having actions take place within CRM, we're able to go so far beyond the traditional lines of CRM. So we used to need Kingsway Self-Scribe, custom integrations, and I won't say those are totally gone, but you can replace so many of those chunky integrations by using Power Automate, which is exciting. So you're able to build those connections between software without deep technical knowledge. I do not possess deep technical knowledge. I am not a developer. I do not write code. I am on the business side and I am able to write flows. So you can too. So if you're new or newer to Power Automate, this is your very quick overview. Every flow has a trigger. A trigger is what's going to cause something to happen. The action is what is going to happen after something meets that trigger. And the way that we pull all these together are by using connectors. Connectors are a wrapper around an API that allows Power Automate to talk to all the different systems, right? We all know that, yes? You're all brilliant Power Automate flow crafters. So in the world of Power Automate connectors, as of yesterday, there are 1,060 Microsoft certified connectors available to extend your Dynamics system or anything in Power Platform. There's a lot of stuff out there. So we're going to spend some time and talk about the 15 built-in connectors, because you are going to find that you use these built-in connectors way more than you ever thought you possibly would. This, again, this will change. This will grow. Things will be taken away. Sometimes you'll see some preview connectors here, and then they disappear. And that's what happened last time I talked about this. So a big beware, if you see a connector that's in preview, please don't put that in production, because you're going to fall in love with it. It's going to do amazing, cool automations, and then it could just come away, which is what happened. There was, I forget what it was called. It was something about identifying your presence when you walk into a building, when you physically walk in. And I blogged about it. I wrote a video about it, mentioned it was in preview. Someone reached out like they had done all these amazing flows and it was gone. How do I fix this? You can't. So beware in preview. Let's walk through what they are, what they do, and just like triggers and actions count, because I think it's important to know. So the control connector, obviously there's no triggers, but there are 6 actions, and there are some really powerful actions here. Condition, I use that a lot. Do I want something to follow a yes-no path? Then I want that condition. Apply to each is also something you'll use a lot in your flows. Do until, scope, switch is great, and terminate. So you want to just stop the flow at a certain step. AI Builder, really cool one. This does involve its own little licensing thing. So you need to have AI Builder credits that will go against this. No triggers in here, but there's 18 actions, and man, are they cool actions. I just put a couple of my favorites here, but you can check out this in Power Automate and see all of them here. You can use actions here to analyze sentiment, kind of like all the stuff Geoff was talking about. It's a lot of OpenAI stuff in here. We can classify text. We can detect text or imagery. We have translate, predict, and more. Great question. What does one AI credit get you more or less? I don't know. I'm not a licensing person. I will let Nick in the background find that answer, because I know he can find it for you and he will answer you in the chat. Thanks, Nick. Third one here is data operation. This one has 7 actions. I used to think, oh, scary. It looks like I have to do something codey here, until I started really diving into Power Automate. And I use data operation a lot, and you're going to see that in the slides. Compose, create table. Your table can be CSV or HTML. You're going to see both of those in future examples. Filter, join, parse JSON, and select. Then we have date time. That has 6 actions that you can use. Add to time, convert time zone, convert time, get future time, get past time, subtract from time. Really powerful actions when you start to think about how you can leverage these. Then we come into some with triggers. So this is what's going to start our flow. Flow button for mobile. This is the user simply manually triggering a flow. Then we have the flows, which looks really similar, but it's different. Instead, this has no triggers and only one action, but a great action, which is run a child flow. So we could talk more about like creating your flows and how you want to do that. But child flows are really cool, because then you can put a particular set of actions that contained in a separate flow and just call that from your parent flow. Then we move on to stuff the developers can talk about that I can't, which is HTTP. There are 3 triggers and 3 actions. They are identical. It's HTTP, HTTP plus Swagger, and HTTP webhook. Number functions, format number. So this is cool if you want to have some data standardization there in your flows. Power Pages, this is the newer one that's in here. So you can either trigger a flow with when Power Pages calls a flow, or you can have an action that will return a value to Power Pages. So that's an awesome way to extend Power Pages functionality. Power Virtual Agents is the same. I love Power Virtual Agents, and we talk for a second about the AI capabilities that are baked into Power Virtual Agents right now using the Copilot. Oh my goodness, that thing is so cool. And that, I believe, does have security around it. I know we were talking about that on Geoff's presentation in some of the comments here, but Power Virtual Agents Copilot does have the ability to run off of internal documentation and URLs. So, a side note, it's really cool. Power Apps. We have two different triggers. One is Power Apps and one is Power Apps version 2. I have them later in my connector deep dive, but I believe, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, Power Apps is the one that you use in any model-driven app, and Power Apps version 2 you would use in Dynamics for Sales or Dynamics for Field Service. I might have them reversed, but it'll tell you in Power Automate which one it is. And it also has an action to respond to a Power App or flow. Request, so this has a trigger anytime an HTTP request is received or an action to do a response. Schedule is really cool. We've got recurrence for a trigger, or we have actions to delay or delay until. And I think that is one of the big things that sets apart your classic CRM workflow with something like Power Automate, because we used to have to use those wait conditions, and then that would get all these system jobs queued up in your CRM system, and it could affect response time. It could get really buggy in there in your system jobs. So with the flow, I really like that you can use the actions for delay and delay until. Text functions, you can use actions there to find your text position and substring, and variable. Variable is really cool too. You can do any of these 6 actions: append to array, append to string, decrement. Is that decrement or decrement? Decrement, right? Decrement. Increment, initialize, and set variables. Set variables is one that I use a lot too. So that's cool. There's a lot of stuff there. These are some common use cases where I think you might want to utilize one of these built-in connectors. So first, you want to create a URL that's going to hyperlink your CRM CE record. I am very annoyed that I don't have a simple field in dynamic values that I can map in Power Automate like I do in Classic Workflow. Right? Old school CRMers, you know, in Classic Workflow, we can just pull that dynamic record URL and it's just automatically going to give me a link. Well, they don't have that here. You're going to have to use a compose action in the data operation connector. I've been doing this a lot because if you're using this in conjunction with CRM, you probably want to give your users the link in whatever you're creating in your actions. Providing different yes/no paths based on a prior step. This is something you would use the conditional action in the control connector. Create a table display instead of a list of items. This is another one in the data operation connector. This would be the table action. And then delay an action using delay or delay until in the schedule connector. So lots of cool stuff. Now we're going to move on to a deep dive into the Dataverse connectors. Connectors plural because we have 2 Dataverse connectors. Why are there 2? So Microsoft Dataverse, the green icon, is going to be your main connector you're going to want to use for all of your triggers and your actions. It has 3 triggers: when a flow step is run from a business process flow, when a row is added, modified, or deleted, and when an action is performed. It also has 14 actions, which we'll look at in a little bit. Dataverse Legacy. Why do we still use that? Because of this one trigger I have highlighted, when a row is selected. That is not something that you can do today in the new connector. I know eventually that's going to be native functionality, but it's not today. And there are great use cases for this. I will show you some of them. So today, that's the only time I use Dataverse Legacy. Everything else, I will use current Dataverse. Does that make sense? Any questions? I know this isn't as sexy as a topic as OpenAI and ChatGPT. I'm sorry. I should have gone first. Great question in here. Do we have Dataverse available for Business Central? No, but Business Central will move on to Dataverse. So you will need to know this. And you're getting a head start because you're learning it before you're on Dataverse. When is it going to be on Dataverse? I have no idea. Probably in the next year or 2. I'm kind of guessing. All right. So let us do a deep dive into the Dataverse connector triggers. Again, we're going to start a flow when something happens in CRM, right? First, when a flow step is run from a business process flow. So I think this is really cool. This is adding a run flow button to your business process flow, which means my users, as they are in Dynamics and they are, for example, walking through a lead to an opportunity and they get to a specific stage of that process, I can have them click a button. This example is going to be start an approval from a business process flow. And then by clicking that button, all these other things outside of CRM are going to happen. So the first thing you have to do if you're going to use this, build an instant cloud flow with this trigger. Second, you're going to have to update your business process flow and add a flow step with your flow details. And third, of course, with all of them, we want to save, publish, and test. So this is what it looks like, but I wanted to give you a video demo. So we're in a solution file here. We're creating a new instant cloud flow. You're looking for the triggers here when a flow step is run from a business process flow. There's additional outputs or inputs you can configure, but we don't need that for this use case. We're going to search for our operation. We're looking for get a row by ID because what we want to do, this example was triggering it from the business process flow for lead to opportunity. So my table's opportunity, row ID, this is important. You have to go into dynamic content and we're looking for that flow stage table row ID. That's going to bring in all of the details of that record, which is necessary in the next step, which is to find our approval. So this is the approval already pre-mapped with different information. Then we're coming over to the business process flow. We're adding a step. This is flow step. And you have to name the step like you do in everything in a business process flow. What's important is this select a flow. We're going to select the flow we just built, and then this is the user interface. Isn't that cool? They're in that business process flow stage in Dynamics 365. They click that run flow button. It launches it. This is the first time I did it in my test environment, so I had to authenticate, but that's cool. You get to see what it looks like, soup to nuts for the whole thing. And then voila, it's all done. Isn't that cool? I think it's so neat. Next up, when a row is added, modified, or deleted. This is like a super trigger. It's like a super dynamic trigger because it can be so many different things. You're going to start a new flow anytime a new record is added, updated, or removed in Dynamics 365. You can use this trigger in any scheduled or automated cloud flow. And the example that I have here that we can walk through is when a new lead is assigned, send a Teams channel message using the flow bot. So I tried to give screenshots of the whole flow here so you can see what it's going to do. But just like the last one, oh, I thought I had a walkthrough. I guess I don't. Well, we can look at the screenshot here. So your change type is the first thing that you're going to look at. And this is where you're going to select if it's added, updated, removed, or you can see you can combine these. So this trigger, I have change type is added or modified. You're going to select your table name. So again, when we're looking for a new lead assignment, we're going to pick lead. And scope. If you're not a CRM person, your scope can be organization, which means everybody in the org can run this. Some of them default to user scope, which would be that you specifically would be able to run this. So it wouldn't run for the whole organization, it would be you. I always set them to organization. Then there's business unit and child business unit. Just depends on how you want people to use it, right? So the second step here is get lead details. So yes, it's triggered when a new owner is added or changed to a record, but I want to get all the details. And then my next step is get the lead owner details because I have to get some additional information that I can use in my next step of the flow, which is to post the message in the chat or the channel. You'll see on some of my slides, I have a Power Automate starter kit. This is a work in progress. I'm almost done it, but if you want to check it out, you can. So what I did was take all of these flows and I exported them each as unmanaged solution files so you can have them and put them into your environments or put them into your test environments. So I'm happy to share them with you if you're interested. All right, the third one here is when an action is performed. Full disclosure, I've never used this because I'm not a developer. I'm not the technically minded person. Those of you who are more techie than me, which is probably all of you on this call, you might see this and get super excited. I see this and I think, Nick, I need you to write my flow. But the first thing that you would do is select your catalog. So catalog has it can be all CXP, Insights Applications Platform, Microsoft Dataverse Common, or Custom Value. Then you'll select your category. Your category will be different based on what you selected for your catalog. Then you'll choose from your table name, again, based on what you selected in category, and then your action name from the list. Usually people are using this along with the plugin registration tool for event-driven actions. And all the examples I saw, because I was looking this up for community examples, they always use with the Dataverse action, perform a bound action or perform an unbound action. I see a lot of chat, so I'm just going to make sure we don't have anything we need to do. Alan, one thing I've noticed in the flows I built connecting F&O is a continuous need to monitor. Flows fail occasionally. Any recommendations on mitigating that issue? I see Nick has some there too. You can use run after on the failed steps to configure what happens on failure. That's a great suggestion. Yeah. I do wish there was a little bit better proactive monitoring, like Nick's suggesting, and we've done this, right? Alert me when there's a failed row. And then you get like either a notification push or whatever you want.
Yeah. Some of the benefits, like that's one of the things why you want to use Power Automate, is you get that flow monitor stuff, you get the analytics and the all run stuff.
Yep. I'm talking really fast because I have a lot of content to go through. I'm sorry. Am I going too fast? Is this okay? If I'm going too fast, just put something in the chat. Slow your roll, Heidi. Too much. All right. And the final trigger for Dataverse is when a row is selected. This is that Dataverse legacy. And this is giving your user the ability to trigger a flow when a row is selected from the flow menu in the command bar from a CRM record. So those of you that aren't in CRM, you can tune out. You're never going to use this. This is just for CRM people. You can only use this with instant cloud flows. And the example that I have here, maybe not the best example, but it's an example. Select an account in CRM, send an email asking them to renew your subscription. So this one, I do have a video. So we're going to go to New Automation, and this is instant. It's the only place you're going to find this. Scroll down till you find that Dataverse legacy one when a row is selected and give it a flow name, right? You always need a name. So once the canvas loads, we're going to get to our next step. Yeah, this one you select an environment. So this is kind of cool. You can't do this in the new one, but this, if you have multiple environments, you'll be able to select from there and select your table name. Then we're going to go to new step, and this is when we're going to get additional details here. You can send an email using a number of different connectors. For this one, we're using Office 365 Outlook. You can use dynamic content. You can hard code this. We're doing add dynamic content because we want to get the email from the account in the previous step. You're going to write your subject. You can always pull in that dynamic content on the right-hand side, which is what we're going to do here. So we're going to grab details. Again, I didn't go terribly exciting in depth here, but this is then the user side. So right from the account, you click that flow button, you select the flow that you just created, and then you're just going to confirm that, yes, I do want to send this flow. So this is going to send an email to that, which I think I have at the end of the video, Sushi School for Cats. So there you go. Sent the email. Everything worked beautifully. I think that's a really neat trigger that I hadn't done too much work with, honestly, until I started prepping for this session, but I like it a lot. So those were the 4 triggers. Now the 15 actions. I won't give you an example for each of the 15 actions, but we will go through what they are. So this is when we want to update our CRM records or your Dataverse records. It's more for Power Apps if you're using Power Apps. When things happen outside of Power Apps, I wanted to update my CRM information. Oh, Geoff has a great comment too. The Power Platform Center of Excellence has monitoring capabilities. Thank you, Geoff. So Dataverse actions. You can add a new row. So that's adding a new row of data on any table. You can download a file or image, get a row using the unique identifier, list all rows in a table, perform a background operation. So see how that says preview? What are we going to do when that says preview? Are we going to put that into production? No, don't use that in production. That can go away. It might not. It might stay forever. Just be careful. Perform a bound action. perform a change set request, delete a row. This will only work if you have the proper permissions in Dataverse. If you are the user who has created this flow and you have system admin permissions, it will let you delete a row. If I am the user running the flow and I have like sales rep permissions and all delete has been stripped away, this flow will never work. I will never be able to delete a row. So it will inherit the security model of Dataverse. We have relate row, so you can link a row from one table to another if they're one-to-end or end-to-end. I can search rows preview. I like this one. I've been playing with it a little bit, but it's in preview, so just playing. Upload a file or image to a Dataverse table. Very important, with a compatible column type. So if I don't have a column type on a table to collect that image or file, it will fail. We can perform an unbound action. We can unrelate rows, so remove the link. And then we can update a row, so modify any row or add another row if it doesn't exist. So some of the Dataverse actions that I use the most, get a row by ID. So I use that action in flows where I want to get record details that I'm going to use in later steps. You saw that in some already. I want to update a row. Used to take information and update a specific CRM record, and then add a new row. So something happens, like someone fills out a form, I want to make a brand new record. So Justin's asking, I missed the note on preview features. You advising not to use preview in production. Yes, Justin, be very careful with preview. Preview means it's going to change. We don't know how it's going to change. It might be enhanced. Some functionality might be taken away. I have seen full connectors be removed that Microsoft listed as preview, and then they've just disappeared. So as a best practice, don't put your preview stuff in production. Have I done it? Yes. It's not a best practice. And I got lucky. It didn't go away. But yeah, you can't quite tell.
Thank you.
Yeah. Time saver alert. Who uses the XRM toolbox? Okay. Yeah, me too, right? So has anyone used the Fetch XML builder? It's built by Jonas Rapp, and it's amazing. If you are less technical like me, or you just don't like writing OData queries, you haven't learned that dialect as well as some of the other languages that we have to know, this tool has been an absolute lifesaver for me. So you can get your OData queries that you can enhance with your Dataverse actions and triggers. And I bring this up now because I do it in like all of these things. So we have time. I went too fast in that first section. I'm going to go slower in 2 weeks. So let's walk through some of our examples. This is Ruby, who Nick showed you at the beginning of our meeting today. And she's going to introduce you to some great use cases to extend dynamics for sales using Power Automate. So these are completely subjective. These are things that I use, that I've implemented for customers, that I think are really cool ways that you can extend dynamic CRM for sales. And those connectors are Microsoft Teams, approvals, Office 365 Outlook, notifications / Power Apps notification, the Data 8 data enrichment, that's a third-party data cleansing tool, and Adobe Acrobat Sign. So let's go through each of these. Some of these have some flows we're going to look at. Some I'm just going to tell you just like an overview of what's going on here. So Microsoft Teams Power Automate connector has 10 triggers and 62 actions. Thing is massive. I can't imagine any of us sitting here could come up with a trigger or an action that we would possibly need Teams to do that doesn't already exist. So my use case here, every morning, I want a list of 1 opportunities posted in a Teams message as the flow bot to a sales channel. And apologies to my coworkers because I did create this and then I forgot to turn it off as a result of this. It's been running every day for weeks. So let's take a look at this. This is a scheduled cloud flow. So you can see I want this to run every day at 8 p.m. And this is in the Power Automate Starter Kit. I tried to annotate everything here. So there's notes on all of these, right? Like feel free to update recurrence time and frequency to whatever makes the most sense. So you can just click edit and change the time, change the frequency, whatever you want. Then we have our Dataverse action here. It's list all of the 1 opportunities. So get the rows. So all opportunities. This is where I'm saying use Fetch XML Builder from XRM Toolbox to get your OData query. So you can just select what you want. I have select columns, name, actual value, and modified by. These are the only 3 columns I care about for the purposes of this. So let's make it a little bit easier and not have all of the columns on all of the rows of opportunity come back. I just need these 3. And I want to filter it by anything that has an actual close date of today and a status code of 1. That's all this is doing. Then we're going to use the data operation connector, remember that from back in the beginning, to create a table. And I'm going to use the output of that in the teams section. So this is my table right here. I'm grabbing dynamic information here. I'm grabbing the value from the prior step, and then I'm mapping it. So I want my columns to be subject, actual revenue, and that's going to map to different fields from the opportunities. So then I'm going to create a table. So that is the HTML table. Oop, I didn't mean to click that. And finally, we're going to post a message in the sales channel. So this is being posted as the Flowbot. We've got the specific channel defined here, and then all the information. Pretty cool stuff. And it makes a nice formatted table that looks lovely. Trying to see if I still have it up. Well, I haven't won any opportunities, so I'm not going to show you what it looks like because it's just blank. Opportunities 1 to get blank. All right, so next we have approvals and Office 365 Outlook. So that's the next one. Approvals has no triggers. It has 6 actions. And I have links for everything here. This is all from connectorreview.com, which is a product that Nick and I made as a community resource. It's just looking at all Power Automate connectors and tagging them by use case. So they're pretty cool. So use case for this is when a quote is activated in CRM, I want to start an approval. When it's approved, I want to send an email to the quote owner. If it's rejected, I want to email that feedback to the quote owner so they know why it's rejected and what they have to do. So we're going to use these two connectors. Then we have Office 365 Outlook. That has 25 triggers and 79 actions. It's a beefy one. I have a note here because you'll see if you're querying for connectors for Outlook, you're going to see Office 365 Outlook. You'll also see Outlook.com. Use Office 365 Outlook for work. So I'd imagine all of us are doing that. Outlook.com connector is supposed to be for personal email accounts, according to Microsoft, and that one has significantly less triggers and actions. I think both would work, but Microsoft prefers the Office 365 Outlook. So this is what this one looks like. This is an instant cloud, an instant cloud flow. So this one is triggered anytime in Dataverse when a quote status is changed to active. Again, Fetch XML Builder from the XRM Toolbox is getting my OData query. So I'm looking for my change type here. This time is just modified. And my scope is organization. I want it to run for everything. My select columns. So whatever you put in the select columns area here is what's going to trigger this. So only state code and status code, which are the schema names, not the display names. So that's your status and your status reason. And I'm only looking when my state code or my status reason is active. All makes sense? You can write your own OData queries, or you can use that fancy XRM Toolbox tool. The second step here, my first action, is get details about the owner of the quote. Why are we getting details about the owner of the quote? Because we need to use that in the email step at the end. I went to go do this. I didn't have this action in there, and I realized, oh crap, I can't do this. I need to get their email address to send the email that I need. So if that happens to you, you can always go back and add a row just like I did. Then we're going to get details about the account on the quote. So this is really interesting running this off the quote because the field we're querying off of is potential customer. And for those of you with a CRM background, you know, potential customer is like a fancy field. It can be an account or it can be a contact, which means it's really difficult to get the right record details and information that I need in my flow this way. So what I want to do is limit this just to accounts. So if you're using contacts on your quotes, you would need to change this table name instead of accounts. You would want to do the same thing for contacts. Then we are going to use the data operation connectors compose action, because this is where we want to get a URL. Now, I have a note here in this yellow box. The URL that you're creating here is model-driven app specific. So if I am using the Sales Hub and I am using a streamlined model-driven app that my sales reps are going in, whatever URL I grab is the model-driven app that the user will be put into when they click this link. So just a note, if you are using model-driven apps versus out-of-the-box CRM hub apps, you'll want to be really careful which one you're selecting that from. When we're doing this compose, I really just take a quote and copy the URL from the main quote page in CRM. I stripped out the last little unique identifier and then replaced it with the quote ID from our trigger step. Does that make sense? Cool.
Yes.
So what that's doing is it's giving my sales reps, or it's giving my users a link that they'll actually be able to click on, which will bring them directly to that quote when they want to approve it. Pretty cool stuff. Then we're going to use our approval. So this is start and wait for an approval. I'm bringing over a lot of dynamic content here. So we've got quote information here. We're getting account details here. And then we've got our conditional. So our conditional is, I want something to happen if my quote is approved. I want something different to happen if my quote is rejected. So if my outcome is approved, I'm going to follow this yes path. We've got apply to each in here. So you're getting fancy with Power Automate, right? We're pulling together all this cool stuff. So apply to each is going to get the response from each approval, and I'm going to include that in the email message. So if we keep going down this yes path, so we're approved. I want to let my sales reps know quote has been approved. And you can see we've got dynamic content from everything. This is the quote ID. This is the account information. We're getting information from the response and the outcome of our approval. And then there's that link to the quote. No, we're going to do a little bit different. So the apply to each here is going to get our rejection comments, right? So if it's anything other than approved, if it's rejected, needs feedback, needs editing, any custom response that I have, I'm going to email the quote rejection details. So it's going to my user. There's their primary email address from Dataverse. Quote was not approved for, and there's our dynamic content from our account. And then we've got our outcome, all that great stuff. So here's a screenshot of one of the rejection emails and what it looks like. I think it's really cool. And then that link to quote, when you click on it, just opens directly to the quote. So my sales rep then can make the changes, right? Looks like you forgot a line item for shipping. Please update the quote, resubmit. So then they could do it directly from there. Cool stuff. Oh, 4 minutes left. Notifications and Power Apps notifications. There's also Power Apps version 2. Oh, I screwed it up, didn't I? I said Power Apps version 2 is it? So Power Apps notification is to any Power App. Power Apps version 2 is to the Sales Hub and Field Service Hub. I just use version 1 because it also works in version 2. I'm not really sure why they have both. So the use case that we're going to do here is receive an email notification or a mobile notification to your phone, and then Power Apps will send a push notification to a specific Power App. So this is what this one's going to look at. I used the notification app instead of Power Apps because I just wanted to show you how you can use it anywhere. So when a new opportunity is added or it's reassigned to me, if the owner is changing, if the status is still open opportunity, I want to create a URL to access the opportunity in CRM. So that's, again, the data operation connector to create that URL to access the record in CRM. Send me a mobile notification. The text is really simple. New opportunity assigned with the topic, the links giving me the link that we defined in the output of that prior step. So this is what it looks like on my phone, in the top right-hand corner here. New opportunity assigned, new cat toys for the school. And then if I'm in the Flow mobile app, if I have that, this is what it looks like within the app. And then it says your opportunity, and I can click on it. Pretty cool stuff, right? So notification can either be mobile or email. I figured I'd show us mobile because everyone gets too many email notifications. It's a nice alternative. We have 2 minutes left. I'm impressed I got through any of these. This is great. So data 8 is really interesting if you have a data cleansing and enrichment project. This is an example they had where you would manually trigger a flow and then validate email address. This is a third-party tool. It's really cool, and you should check it out if you have any needs for that. It's not CRM, it's anything. Adobe Acrobat Sign, there's a lot of document signing solutions within Power Automate. This is one great action example. When a document has been added to a specific SharePoint library, I want to use the create an agreement from an uploaded document and send for signature action. So then you can automate the entire process, which is cool. You can even combine this with approvals and get approval on your agreement. And then once it's approved, use kind of the actions here to send out the agreement. And I am totally out of time. There's lots of cool things for marketing. So we've got forms, there's Microsoft Forms, WordPress forms, we've got SMS, marketing automation and email. So lots of cool things that you can do in here. And I'm going to take you to my very last slide. If you want this, that's my bird too. Did I ever tell you I have a bird? We have cats, a dog, and a bird. Lots of cool things. If you want this, you can check it out. This is a draft. I made this web page yesterday. It's not ready to be live. Reenhance.com/starter kit. It's free. I have a flow that I created that's going to take the form you submit on this form, and it's going to email you the Power Automate starter kit. It's still in progress, but maybe it'll be cool. Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for attending.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
It was like a whirlwind of information, I know. I'm going to stop recording.